things. Definitely a bit of common sense, a working laptop and an internet connection, which I know has been the pain of most people with the NBN. And also just making time and structuring your day correctly. I actually think they're the critical keys in how to run a business effectively.
So joining me on the line today, I've got Stewart Armstrong from Tradecounter. Welcome to the call, Stewart.
Thank you very much, David. It's lovely to be here.
So maybe tell us a bit about what Tradecounter actually is.
So Tradecounter is a holistic accounting consultancy business. We specialize in working not just with trades, but a whole raft of different industries. And basically our business exists to kind of help make a small business owner's life easier and to help them understand basically the basic needs of how their finance function works and what it can basically do to add value to them.
Yeah, fantastic. Tell me a bit about, like, obviously you've just started up during the COVID crisis, right?
That's correct.
So tell us what it's like to start a business during a lockdown.
It's not the most ideal time to start one, is what is a kind way I'd say putting it. When you start up a business, you've got a good idea in your head with a business plan, obviously in mind about what you want to do. Yeah. However, for us, that didn't really materialize. We basically had to sit down and put our heads together and think about, right, how are we going to make this work? Everything has to be digital, and we've got to be able to keep in mind that some of our clients aren't going to be that tech savvy. So we started up basically, I suppose, it was a very steep learning curve for us to what we originally envisaged, and I would say we've adapted pretty well. As I said, we're continuing to grow, and kind of keeping in touch with clients is definitely more than just a phone call now. Yeah. Everyone wants a lot of FaceTime, so yeah, I feel like we've learned a lot during our time, but yeah, I think it's going to help keep us going and keep us thinking about how to stay ahead of all the curveballs that are currently coming out of COVID, really.
Yeah, I suppose the truth is during a lockdown, during sort of tough economic times, some of the biggest businesses on the planet have been established.
Oh, absolutely. And if you think about it in any way, the businesses that thrive the most and that survive are the ones that adapt. Unfortunately, the ones which are a bit slower out of the blocks, unfortunately, are often the ones that struggle and lag behind. And so, yeah, like you rightly said, some of the biggest tech companies on the planet came out of not dissimilar circumstances. So,
yeah. So tell me, like, what opportunities do you see moving forward?
I was talking to my wife today about this. We were talking about where we see the opportunities in the future. Yeah. And also building on what we've had feedback from clients. And one of the big ones we've seen is, I think that's quite exciting, is COVID, even though it's had a detrimental effect on a lot of people's lives, it is one aspect of it that's actually, I think, creating quite an exciting form of innovation, is around the adaptation that people are having to go through to work from home. Yeah. And what that means for a business going forwards. And some of the discussions we've had with clients up until recently is the view has always been, as you progress and you grow, you go to a larger office environment, you have more people working for you. That's the tradition, and in most white collar environments, that's traditionally what's happened. Yeah. But now what we're seeing is a lot of people are realizing, hey, I can actually work from home. Employers are starting to trust their employees a lot more. Yeah. Hey, just because they're working remotely doesn't mean they're not going to get their job done. And that's putting a lot of question marks the longer that COVID goes on about what that means for for people working in the CBD. Yeah. And where I think it's quite exciting is talking to people now, as the starting part of that conversation we're having is we're talking about overhauling budgets. Yeah. And also talking more about, well, how can we shed overheads? And one of the big costs is always rent. And so people are starting to go, well, maybe I can just have a client-based office, keep staff rotating through there on occasion so everyone stays in touch. And then most people working from home.
Yeah. And I think the other part of this is, Zoom, what we're using right now.
Absolutely.
Someone described it to me today as a travel replacement as opposed to a communication tool. Because
absolutely.
The airplanes are out of the sky, and I don't think they're ever going to come back to the way they were because people are so comfortable using this technology now, huh?
No, I completely agree. And the fact is as well, when you're actually, say if you're just chatting to someone on the phone, like Zoom has replaced that in the aspect of you're having a face-to-face conversation with someone. That you're right, travel expenses can be shed quite considerably.
Yeah.
And there's not much you can't do remotely with someone. Even training, the aspects of sharing your screen, training with people, and taking them through things. I watched a lot of people talk about LMS recently. So learning management systems, and how they're now looking at them through a different perspective to how they can use them to train their staff globally. So yeah, I think there's some terrific innovation around this, and I think it's going to continue long past when, say, we move out of this COVID phase. So it's exciting to see.
Yeah. Let me ask you on a personal level, Stewart, what lessons have you had as a result of this current crisis?
I prepared a list of these for you because I thought this would be quite amusing. And for anyone who's started up a business, particularly in the last 3 months, what I've definitely learned is not to take clients or any other form of stakeholder for granted. Your clients are your number one asset, and the ones that you build in at the ground level are going to normally be your foundational clients. So even though it may mean you have to take a couple more steps with them, it's worth it in the end. And they're at the end of the day going to go out and actually market you to other people. If you put the time in to build the relationships with them, it will pay off for you tenfold. That's one of my single biggest lessons I've learned. And I'm quite lucky. I haven't lost a client yet, so I'm pretty keen to keep that. And obviously adaptation is huge. When we came into this, as you were talking about at the beginning there, we set up the business to the view that we were going to be able to go out and network with a lot of people in the more traditional sense.
Yeah, that's gone.
And how you and I, David, have met each other is through a completely different means. But like the way I look at it is, it's definitely turned the idea of that on its head, and it's got me thinking more broadly about, and I suppose more creatively about, how I go about doing that too. Definitely keeping an ear. This is number 3: keeping an ear to the ground to understand what how external forces can influence or impact your own business. Things keep changing so rapidly, particularly in the state of Victoria. On a day-to-day basis, it's actually pretty hard to keep up. But I mean, I've been talking to some of my clients where they've sat there, and the day that they brought out those work permits for travel, some of them didn't have them in place for their employees, and they didn't even realize how significant they were. And that led to some awkward conversations about. But yeah, there's the need for compliance keeps changing. So that's something to keep on top of. And I'll just finish with one further one. Realizing what you do and you don't need to run a business effectively. I think when you first enter the sphere of running your own business, you sit there and think, oh, I need all these terrific things that people tell me about. And really actually boils down to, you only need a couple of things. Definitely a bit of common sense, a working laptop and an internet connection, which I know has been the pain of most people with the NBN. And also just making time and structuring your day correctly. I actually think they're the critical keys in how to run a business effectively. And trying not to get overwhelmed by things, and being ready to take a deep breath and step back occasionally to reevaluate and reassess what you're looking at.
Great, fantastic. So let me ask you, Stewart, the best piece of business advice you've ever received.
All right, I'll give this to you. And this actually came from a CEO, and also it was really pitched to me by a CFO that I later worked with as my mentor. And he said it very broadly in a way which I think it reflects leadership and how to run a business. When you're running a business, you need to listen, you need to reflect, you need to then listen again, then start planning, and then after that stage, listen again, and then finally review, and then only act. Don't ever go jumping in straight away to something, I think, is the takeaway from that. And it's the same with anything you do in life. The more broadly you give time to understanding something, the greater chance you've got of finding a competitive advantage to take you forwards.
Yeah, fantastic. Let me ask you on another note, do you read any books in business?
I've read a few. I actually read a lot of journals. So I used to read quite actively, say, the Wall Street Journal, Financial Times. Over here, I have to admit, I'm a member of an accounting association. So a lot of what I read is more based around, say, what you're going to find in an accounting textbook. But the changes to that are quite important to me, because if I don't stay abreast of what's changing within industry or profession, or in legislation, I can quite easily get caught out. So I won't bore you with the details of those.
I was going to say, which is your favourite? I can't imagine any of those things would be your favourite.
No, definitely not tax law.
On the other hand, right?
No, tax law is definitely not in there. I have to admit, there's some terrific leadership and management accounting books out there that'll teach you some good tricks about ratios, if that's your thing. But I'd sit back and say that, yeah, my the way I work and stuff and what I read to keep across as a working professional is probably not what most of your viewers and stuff are going to be particularly interested in.
But one last question for you, Stuart. The number one piece of advice you give to someone running a business right now?
I think if I was to give anyone any advice, I'd say everyone tends to look at economic downturns as a disaster. One of the things I learned from a terrific economist who I studied under when I did my degree, he taught me the fact that just a natural part of an economic life cycle. It's quite easy to get caught up and feel a bit down about it when there's a slump occurs, but actually a slump is, as I said, a natural part of an economy cycle. Australia's had 29 years of continuous booming, and it was unfortunately always going to come to an end. It's quite remarkable that it went that far, but when a recession hits, it hits businesses of all shapes and sizes. So I'd say to anyone who's even considering starting a business now is don't get worried about that. If you're passionate about what you do and you know that you've got a good idea and you've got the drive to make it happen, go with it. Like don't sit back and wait. And I think that's something I've learned from starting my own business. There's never a good time or a bad time to start up. And some of the best businesses in the world have come out of economic recessions. I've been lucky now to live for at least 2 or 3 of them. You might be able to tell I'm from the UK, so yeah, the global financial recession that we had a few years ago, that was very damaging. And I think this one, though, I think Australia is in a good position to come through. So my advice to anyone is, yeah, don't give up and just have a go.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, Stuart. Look, thanks so much for your time today and sharing some of that wisdom. Really appreciate it.
No, absolutely. Thank you again for your time, David.
Pleasure. Thanks.